Oh yo 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 yo. Oh yo yo yo. Oh yo yo yo. There was a wall. There was a wall. Standing high and wide. Standing high and alone. A lonely wall. Impenetrable. Full of colors. Decorated with sorrow. Graffiti in each side, yeah. Red, purple, black and blue. Each brick intertwined with its whole emotional tune. Oh yo yo yo. When I came to Canada, I came to Toronto, and over there I saw this huge diversity of people, a great melting pot, you know, which is great. It's awesome. Salam Naima, how you do? Always good. Growing up in Italy, small little town of like about 10,000 people, where I was the only black kid. Very tiny farm town, even older than Rome. As beautiful and enchanting as it is, with its own stories and relics and all the leftovers of time, which are somewhat still intact. Also, some old racial and political views of yesterday are still intact and still lingering there, with some people's views and beliefs and actions, and some of these actions quite violent. So you can just imagine the contradicting rhythms of ugly and beautiful that I had to dance with growing up there. But that's a story for a different time. Now let's just fly ahead to Canada. So coming here, Toronto, and to see all of this diversity, that was really cool. But and then I asked myself, Canada uses this idea that there is a lot of diversity, and it is true. But why don't we see it also on the ads? I went to an ESL school, English as a second language, and seeing people that actually look like me, and that was amazing. That was great. I felt I belonged. I felt like I was somewhere where I can blend in and I can be part of. And although I was surrounded with friends from every corner of this planet and living a Canadian day-to-day life, I would sometimes wonder, why don't I also see people like me on the billboards and on TV? But also as an immigrant who has just arrived, who was indoctrinated from an early childhood that myself and everybody else that isn't white were not in the norm, especially in white countries. Well, it was not our place to be in the glamour of these countries. I mean, it's already good enough and we're lucky enough to be in such beautiful and privileged countries. And to be on the billboards, to be on TV, well, no, that's for normal people. And that would be just asking too much. We're not normal. We are colored. We are immigrants. We are refugees. We are the ones that got saved by white people. So we need to just keep our mouth shut and be happy with what we have and be grateful and thankful. Always the minority, even when we are majority. Ladies and gentlemen, Madame et Messieurs, bonsoir. Hello everyone. Here in Canada, I am known as a visible minority, whatever that might mean. But one thing that it does mean for certain is minority equals inferiority. And this term has a lot of psychological effect on all of us. Emotion detained with fake champagne, laying up for that late night domain. A Main Street walks under acid rain, mistaking Mary Jane for the holy cocaine. And one thing that does not help with this separation here in Canada, that actually perpetuates this modern time segregation, is the ads, the publicity that we see all around us. Just look around you and tell me and realize for yourself, how many billboards do you actually see with the faces of a black person, Latino person, Asian person, Arab person, and First Nation person?
I grew up in Calgary, a very white school, and I remember thinking that, like, oh, so like these people are the people who are beautiful. Like, these girls are the ones who are beautiful, who have like very, very specific noses and specific face shapes that are less common for Asian people. And I remember thinking that, like, oh, so that's what beauty means, and I don't look like that, and I'm maybe not as beautiful. Not maybe not. I thought then, like, I was not as beautiful because I didn't. I don't know. It was not only in advertisements, but in movies and everything. Like, usually the ideal of beauty was one that would be impossible for me.
I was broken. He was broken, yeah. Well, she was broken, yeah. They were all so broken now.
There's ads in, I can think of some, like in the Toronto Metro, there's ads, I don't know, go to Ryerson or go to this school ads that have diverse people. But I don't know, I didn't see any, like I'll see, you know, a clean cut black guy, but I don't see a guy with long dreads like yours. So that in itself, certain things are accepted and certain are not.
I'm not sure that these people are necessarily seeing the ads or having these deep thoughts that kind of you've been asking about, but at the same time, I do think it's a microcosm of all the systems and structures that are keeping people down. So I don't think that seeing themselves in a picture on a subway would necessarily make them feel better, but I think the fact that they're not represented is symptomatic of a problem in our society and what we construct as someone who belongs in a certain place and who doesn't, and those two things I think are very out of sync.
There should be more color in advertising, for sure. When it comes to media, like when it comes to models and pictures, they always use white models. And on TV commercials, you'll usually find there's usually one or two that are more centered towards different races, because that's where the products are bought by. It's kind of annoying to think that in a society that's so multicultural and is built on immigrants that have all come to this country and made this nation to a giant multicultural nation, we're not noticed more. So I think in advertising we should be represented more.
Nice that we find this girl right here. She's pretty and white. What we were looking for was this young man who's about as try hard to be black as possible, but he's a friendly, sort of safe way of telling us that we are among other cultures.
Now, representation in itself is a very, very important concept because it's representation. So it's a presentation of who is there. So the absence of representation is simply stating if you're not there, you're not part of the image that makes us us. The human society.
The fact that you didn't see any woman with a hijab for the longest time ever, and now finally you're starting to see that.
Yeah, it makes me happy. It makes me proud of who I am. I'm proud of this country also, because it's bringing out us to the country, to the world.
Different ethnicities make up a large part of Canada, and it's infuriating to see that when you walk down the street and you go everywhere, there's so few representations of people who look like me or who look like basically anybody who looks like they're not white, and that makes you just feel invisible.
Everyone who comes to Canada, everyone works very hard into making Canada what it is. And yet, we are not accredited, we are not represented, we are not included. We are a minor presence, an inferior existence. We are the pulsating life of this country. We are making this country into this beautiful, vibrant, colorful, and one of the most diverse places on earth. So why minorities? Why are we not included? Why isn't there more photos of us on the publicity, on TVs, magazines, billboards? And truth be told, the public transit system is not used as much by those wealthy people that create those billboards, right? It's used more in a daily basis by us. So why are we not represented? Is it because we are not beautiful enough? Are we not worth it? Don't we exist? Are we not important? What is it? Or is it just a constant reminder that we are not at home? Because, I mean, hell yes, we are beautiful, we exist, we are worth it, we're here. So if it is a constant reminder that this is not our home, then why don't we see more of First Nation people? I mean, after all, this is their home, right?
The lack of representation in the media for Black people is a tool to keep the structures alive that we have, which is white supremacy. So you just reproduce and keep on representing the same structures that we are already dealing with. So you just manifest them even further and stronger.
Mon nom est Sylvester Mustokushu. Je viens de Mingan, c'est la côte nord. Je suis un Innu. On est comme un peuple invisible, comme si on n'existait pas.
Maintenant, quelques chiffres sur la région de Montréal, sur Montréal en particulier. Regardez, ça va arriver un tableau. Combien il y a de minorités visibles à Montréal? 32% à la ville de Montréal, 20% dans la région de Montréal. Et au Québec, c'est 10%. Donc, gardez en tête un chiffre, 32%. Le tiers des habitants de la ville de Montréal sont des minorités visibles. Alors, gardez ça en tête et regardez ce qui suit.
Bienvenue à Montréal! Les gens, arrête de sacrer avec ça! Ah! Un rideau!
J'ai passé toute ma vie à Montréal. C'est chez nous, c'est ma ville, je l'aime.
Party!
Ans, ça se fête et ça se fête en grand.
Bonne fête, Montréal!
Bon, Gilbert Rozon, comment ça a pu passer? Parce qu'on sait que des publicités, puis c'est tous les consortiums de télé, puis il y a du monde qui regarde ça. Il n'y a pas un qui a levé la main en disant, il me semble que c'est pas le Montréal que je connais, ça.
J'ai parlé de ça, de l'importance de vous entourer de gens qui connaissent le milieu culturel dans la diversité culturelle, dans la mise en valeur de notre héritage. Je vous ai parlé de ça, puis j'ai pas réussi à obtenir puis capter vraiment votre attention. Je me suis essayé à plusieurs reprises aussi.
La publicité, c'est un média, c'est un moyen de communication. Et pour toucher le maximum de gens, les gens pensent qu'il est préférable d'utiliser quelqu'un qui est issu de la majorité, c'est tout. Hein. Mais moi, personnellement, c'est pour les gens qui en veulent. Moi, je ne suis pas quelqu'un de fanatique de la publicité.
Not being visible in media has a very big effect on kids, on children. If you are not part of what is called the norm, of what is called society, you will have psychological, I wouldn't call it issues, but this will leave traces. This will leave imprints of you not being able to visualize yourself as a pioneer, as a school teacher. I mean, this is not only for Black children, this is for Black children that are Muslima, that are wearing the jihad. Where do you see them? You know, they are not visible. They are made invisible in the society.
Vous mettez pas ça à la police, nous sommes des vieilles femmes indignes, là. Hein? Regarde, on se fait filmer.
Mon nom est Spencer Saint-Onge, je suis originaire de Ouachat, Maniotelam. Et puis, ça nous affecte, je vais vous dire, ça nous affecte, nous, personnellement, en tant qu'Autochtones, on n'est pas reconnus, premièrement, de nous afficher, premièrement, avec notre photo. Et puis ça, ce serait déjà beaucoup. Le monde, il y aurait une image de nous et peut dire, bon, ce sont des vrais Inuits de leur communauté qui viennent ici. Puis c'est pas mal ça, parce que comme moi, j'ai un nom anglais, Spencer, fait que le monde ne doit pas s'attendre bien à voir un Inuit devant la scène là, ce soir.
Le problème présentement à Montréal, il y a un manque de diversité culturelle dans les médias. Oui, Québécois, je parle à vous, parce que Montréal, c'est pas juste les Blancs. J'adore les Blancs, don't get me wrong. C'est la diversité, c'est ça qui fait la force de la métropole, c'est la diversité. Alors, engager des Chinois, des Blancs, des Noirs, des Arabes, des Latinos, tout le monde, représenter. Bonne année.
And if you don't do it, he's gonna knock some sense into you.
I'll recognize your face, and always talk a while. You cramp my style, and everything's just always so broken now, and everything's shattered, 'cause it's so broken. Everything and everyone starts out so broken now.
All the other trains that are going downtown or in different places, you might find ads for different musicals or different shows or something that you can purchase. But on the trains, some of the trains going uptown into these other areas, I saw an ad for, you know, it took a second to figure out, but it was basically against HIV. There was nothing about HIV there or teenage pregnancy, but it was a picture of a man and a woman, and it said, she has her condoms, she has her pill and he has his condoms, so they have no problem. And I took from the ad that they both need to be responsible. Two people need to be responsible. If a man always has a way of, you know, protecting himself and a woman always has a way of protecting herself, they will be okay. But something I noticed in the ad, as soon as I was kind of just computing the ad in my brain, thinking, oh yeah, okay, that's an interesting ad. But at the very end, I realized that the girl was probably, you know, Hispanic and the guy was Black. And I thought, where are the white people? Because, you know, it's not just people of color or any sort of shade thereof that have problems either contracting HIV or having some sort of teenage pregnancy or unwanted pregnancy. I think the ads are telling us that there's a direct correlation between any sort of shade darker than white and dirty. And dirty equals disease when there's nothing to do with any of that. Why is this particularly towards anyone that's not white, basically, which I guess would be minority? And then underneath it, there was something really nasty that I don't even want to repeat because it makes my blood boil so much. It was written by somebody. It said, "No more monkeys, please." And I think I just stopped and I almost bit someone's head off. It put me in such a bad mood and just such a, I mean, like to relate any human being to an animal, no matter what, and it yet goes back to the correlation between what we think and how we're trying to advertise that human beings have different categories, and some human beings are human beings, and some can be related to other animals. I mean, if it was two white people in that ad, no one would have said anything about monkeys.
Minorité visible. Puis ça veut dire quoi selon toi? What does it mean to you and what does it do to you to hear visible minority?
Minorité visible, ça veut dire
pour moi, je trouve ça ridicule comme terme, parce que si n'importe qui a pris un autobus, n'importe qui a pris le métro, la minorité visible, c'est les Blancs.
Toi, explique-moi, ça veut dire quoi une minorité visible? Parce que moi, je suis canadien comme tout le monde. C'est comme ça que je me bats. C'est comme ça que lui, il va comprendre qu'il est con et ça sert plus à rien d'avoir un fichier pareil.
Donc, quand on dit minorité visible, ça veut dire qu'on vit encore dans un encadrement colonialiste, que c'est encore le contrôle est fait de l'extérieur pour nous donner l'illusion qu'on est encore en soumission et en manque de pouvoir.
Comment est-ce que je vois que ça affecte mes enfants de ne pas voir des gens comme eux dans la publicité, de voir surtout des gens blancs comme moi et caucasiens, disons. Je pense qu'à la longue, ça peut les affecter dans le sens qu'ils ne se voient pas comme étant partie de la société.
That's a good question. Sorry, I need to think about that for a second. Visible minority.
Let's revisit the language, because the language is what's going to evoke imagery.
Who controls our thinking, being, and becoming? Lost in society, lost in sobriety, always the minority winning majority. They say we're free, this is liberty, we're the largest population in poverty. There is no diffusing black, shoot to kill back to back. Higher number in prisons, always for good reasons. Crying over and over for endless of seasons. Wanna make it in the big leagues, yes sir. Flip, clean, wash and serve. Wanna make it in the big leagues, yes sir. Flip, clean, wash and die. Standard of beauty, still changing skin color in 2020. Love for black will never exist if negation persists. Victims of violence, drug, guns and misery from our own community, and that isn't a mystery. More brothers and sisters in prisons today than mothers and fathers on the field yesterday. Who controls our thinking, being and becoming? And you are a model, right?
Yeah.
And
you can take a look of.
why don't you think, holy shit, crap?
Yeah, that was when I have my hair and you know. But I cut it off because I'm coming to Western world. I'm not gonna sell in the market. I already knew that before I came.
Hold it, you gotta show us. Show.
I already knew that before I came that okay. I'm not gonna sell. Yeah, in this now, maybe Calvin Klein wants you, but in Montreal, they will use white. They're never gonna use black. You know? Yeah.
I mean,
sure. This okay picture. I did a lot of job in South Africa because it's a black country.
and in here you think you cannot get it because?
Maybe I just give up. Maybe I don't have confidence enough to do it anymore because I'm coming to the Western world.
J'ai jamais vu une annonce encore de personne, disons, en africaine, une haïtienne, même juste une personne, je sais pas, haïtienne avec une personne québécoise de souche ici. C'est rare. Puis c'est une relation qui est intime. C'est pas juste deux collègues, un à côté de l'autre. C'est une relation d'amour. Ça serait bien de voir plus d'images comme ça. Par exemple, des publicités de maisons. C'est souvent un type de famille qu'on voit. On peut voir que c'est cette famille-là qui a acheté une maison. Acheter une maison, c'est une réussite parce que ça veut dire que la personne a du succès financièrement. Et dans sa carrière et tout.
It's a very, very important issue that needs solution. But who is going to solve it?
The future generation.
So how can they solve that?
By being empowered.
Letting them know
By being empowered. And how can they be empowered? By seeing that they matter, that they exist, by knowing and acknowledging the fact that their contribution existence in countries such as Canada is valued and is important because they can actually see themselves represented.
Do you think the white doesn't think that blacks or Asian matters? They know that we matter.
But that's why they don't empower us. They don't want us to know.
Yeah, because they don't want to lose what they have.
Donner un peu plus d'image aux autochtones qui sont, ils étaient là avant les autres.
Les femmes ont fait 1000 km de ma communauté et ils sont venus ici à Montréal pour se faire entendre au Parlement et puis les portes se sont fermées. Ces femmes n'ont jamais été écoutées. Ils se sont fait renvoyer dans leur communauté. Et c'était une marche qu'ils ont faite de cette île à Montréal. C'est ça, et il y a beaucoup de déception à travers ça. Fait que tu peux pas comme... t'as de la misère à vouloir avoir la confiance pour percer dans la musique.
Not experienced any active culture apart from the festival once a year in summer on Place des Arts that has anything to do with autochtone Canadians. And I find that is a huge pity because they are even less represented, I find. And I find it's a very symbolic and very significant point. It says a lot about a country, it says a lot about the policies, it says a lot about the power structures in society and how a people sees themselves. And just the wording, I mean, let's talk about Québécois. Je suis Québécois du souche, ligne pure. I'm from Austria. I come from the Second World War, you know, like we talk about Aryan. Those are vocabularies that remind me greatly of the vocabulary that we had in Hitler Germany and in Hitler Austria.
The notion of representation started with the church, with religious iconography in the 13th century. And that idea that here's God and he's white and he has a white beard, and was the notion that set sail for the Crusades. And they arrived in the Americas and they said, do you see yourself on this image? Of course, we couldn't see ourselves on this image. And therefore, we didn't exist because we didn't have written history to prove who we were and to speak about our spirituality on a written format, which was the only way that would explain the representation. Now, the continuation of colonialism is making sure that there's an absence of representation, that you keep the dominant control or power in the hands of those who control the frameworks of our society. Hence, media is controlled by white elite often, and since the 80s we started getting more black representation with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, with Bill Cosby. But as Indigenous people, we're invisible. And when we are visible, we're either the last of a dying race or we're historical people. We are no longer part of a modern representation in our mainstream media. Indigenous people have been forced to assimilate, and now it's being held against us that we've assimilated too much, that we don't represent the Indigenous people that we expect to see. So a nation that's absent is a nation that doesn't exist. So how does it affect us? Many ways. It alienates the spectator, it marginalizes the people, and it doesn't leave any room for our stories and our history, but that's changing.
People of color, we need to be not only seen on the ads, but we also need to be working hand in hand with people that are in high places, that have the power to make some choices, some important decisions within the society, yeah? And I'm not just talking about within the politics, but also, for example, see what happened with the publicity of the 375? If there were people that, of color with the people that took the decision to make that ad, that was not going to fly. Just the same thing with the Saint Jean-Baptiste parade. If people of color were present within that decision-making process, that was not going to happen. Huh? So we need that. And also what we need to do is to give importance, visibility, and also to be able to hear the lives, works, struggles, and the problematics of people of color, so that, you know, then proper actions can be taken, because you actually give weight and importance, because once you know about it, you'll understand it, and once you'll understand it, you will care about it.
Alors pour moi, c'est tous des fils de pute, les médias. La pub encore plus. 375e, nique ta race. Mec, shit. Moi je suis pour la paix, mais je vais dire Denis Coderre, arrête de manger des burgers déjà, et laisse-en un peu pour le peuple. Après, si on n'est pas dans la pub, bah tu sais quoi, on va créer un pays à Henri Mustapha. Dans ta gueule déjà, frère, tu vas voir. On va faire des pubs, il y aura que des Renois, des rebeux. Vive la paix, enculé.
Essa wirao, 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 essa wirao. Hey yo.
Black women teachers? Where do you see black doctors, black women doctors? They're just still a very, very, very small minority, and not being part of that landscape that constitutes a society is affecting your self-confidence. It is affecting the choices that you will take up in your life, the career choices that you will follow, because then one person who's prejudiced against you has a very easy game, because they just have to put bad seeds on a very fertile ground, which has already been prepared by the media, and saying, you know what, your strength is not in math. I do not see you as an accountant, although you want to be one. And because you have never seen that representation of yourself in those positions, let's say accountants, lawyers, bank managers, bank directors, you might be much more likely to believe that that teacher was right. That's not my strength. This is not where I belong. Let me do something manual and get into a different kind of direction. So having representation in media is of utmost importance, because it does affect our visions of ourselves and of the communities around us. So it also has the same effect on white kids, obviously. They see that they are presidents, they are managers, they are bank directors. So that little boy next to, let's say, my little boy, in his mind, has many more options available to him and to his future than maybe my little boy.
Walt Disney is only for white people. Look at the people behind, but they're all white. Yeah, there isn't one that is not. Look at that. All of them, every single one. There is no color in Disney. And whenever there is publicity representing diversity, many times it doesn't represent it in a proper way. It actually perpetuates a stereotype. Every awakening moment of our existence, we see ads everywhere. We are bombarded. We are invaded. Our life, our psyche is invaded by it, and we get conditioned by it.
Well, I think having stereotypes in ads is just like really damaging. Like, for example, that Asian man in the ad where he's like being a master of samurai or of martial arts, like having that as the stereotypical go-to like Asian figure is damaging for people who want to show that like they can also be masters in many different domains.
Le stéréotype est essentiel pour ceux qui contrôlent les médias pour assurer qu'on sache où on garde la place aux gens dans la société, puis qu'on empêche une évolution, une modernité de s'imprégner d'une culture contemporaine, qu'on veut rester dans une histoire en arrière pour mieux contrôler.
For example, I'm an Asian woman, and I don't want to see like the only possibilities that are possible for me is like either, you know, the stereotypical like nerdy Asian girl or like some like hypersexualized version. And I feel like the variety of representations of young Asian women I see is very shallow in advertisement.
Ce qu'on voit comme image des gens noirs ou latins ou arabes, c'est tout le négatif. Les Noirs, ils apportent l'Ebola aux États-Unis. Les Haïtiens, ils sont en train de souffrir en Haïti. Ils ne peuvent pas s'en sortir. Les Colombiens, c'est des narcotrafiquants ou bien c'est des guérilleros.
Absolument, ça fait que le racisme, ça perpétue la continuité de nous et vous.
Now, I was working as a social worker in a youth center. I've been doing this work for like about 10 years or more. But in this particular place, I was there for the last almost 5 years. And this new director came after me, and she fired me for insubordination because she made terrible comments, like, you know, saying that Haitians deserve the misery they're in because they're a nation of corrupted people, that First Nation people, they rather stay away from society as their own choice and get high with paint. She told a 15-year-old kid of Latino background, go back to where you come from. And I reported her, and I got fired for insubordination, for not listening and obeying. So then I talked to this organization, CDPDG, and they are there to help people like me. They said, Khalid, we can't help you because the racist attacks and the racist comments that this person did was not directed to you, but to other black people. In this society, people of color, immigrants, newcomers, we cannot stand for one another, we cannot unite. So I cannot stand up and protect and talk for someone who looks exactly like me.
Divide and conquer, c'est toujours encore le terme. On divise et on conquérit les gens, et c'est la façon dont la colonisation a été établie, puis c'est la continuité de la colonisation. C'est pas fini, ça continue toujours. Les stéréotypes, c'est l'élément narrateur pour continuer cette histoire.
Just have to keep fighting it. And that is why we combine. That is why we combine, you know, as a black and Asia, we combine to bring a beautiful Blasian. So,
and she can't be racist against Asians or
no,
Africans.
she cannot be racist. She can't be racist to black. She can't be racist to white. So there is still changes that is gonna come, but it's gonna take time. It's gonna take time, you know. So then we're gonna change the world.
Esa lengüita rosadita y ese movimiento suyo, suyo.
récemment, je suis retournée habiter sur la banlieue, à Sainte-Thérèse. C'est pas loin d'ici. J'ai un monsieur récemment qui venait de Montréal, qui est rentré dans le café où je travaille et il me dit j'aime bien la vibe, mais sont où vos ethnies? C'est vrai qu'on a beaucoup moins, je sais pas pourquoi, elles sont toutes sur l'île, mais ça serait gagnant pour comme l'acceptation aussi. Le monde de la banlieue, ils ont une peur, c'est le trafic, Montréal, c'est les ethnies, mais tous les jours, ils en acceptent du monde qui ont des différentes ethnies, puis ils s'en rendent pas compte sur la banlieue. À Sainte-Thérèse, on a une grosse population de Portugais, puis parce que, visiblement, peut-être comme les Italiens ou ces gens-là, ils ont la peau blanchâtre comme nous, ils sont européens, ils nous ressemblent. Fait que tous les jours, peut-être pas tous les jours, mais en voulant dire, ils les acceptent puis ils s'en rendent pas compte. C'est quand ils vont arriver à avoir leur nom de famille, là, ils vont faire « Ah, mais t'es pas québécois, t'es pas... » Mais avant ça, ils ont pas cette fermeture-là. Tandis que quand ils vont avoir des personnes que visiblement ils ont une différence, ben, ils sont peut-être plus froids, plus fermés. So face value, like you're a visible minority because you look different than somebody who is white. And then white is the normal, and then you're the visible different. That is the part where it just becomes part of the way we think about, I guess, our identity as something that's different than the norm. Whereas, like, why should white be the norm?
La sociedad necesita gente como nosotros, sobre todo para mejorar la raza, y necesita todos los tipos, negros, morenos, blancos, chinos, latinos. Venimos aquí a tratar de buscar y mejorar nuestra calidad de vida, sobre todo que todos iguales no puede ser. Y también genera nuevo tipo de razas. Aquí está mi hijo, un ser un poco más fuerte que los demás, más resistente a los virus y de otro colorcito. Sí, no se enferma.
If I'm contributing to this campaign to making this country what it is, to this huge multicultural nation, then show it on the billboards, on TVs, on the ads that we do exist. I'm not gonna be accepting just the idea that I got rescued from whatever kind of country and that I should just keep my mouth shut and be a second-class citizen.
Naima, your silence has million words, but no more for this world. You hear talk of peace, but you see no peace. Your heart is balled up in chain, like rain, forever in your brain. To wait for your cane to pick you up from the lane. You won't make it to the train.
Ça fait 25 ans qu'on parle de ça et je ne vois pas vraiment le grand changement. Évidemment, il y a un peu de changement qui se fait, mais je pense qu'il faut forcer le changement. Ce sont des décisions politiques que ça prend pour forcer le changement. Le forcer de dire qu'il y a une représentativité, une certaine représentation de la diversité qui doit être dans tel ou tel et de dire voilà le pourcentage et vous ne pouvez pas déroger de ça. C'est la seule chose. Parce que sinon ça passe pas. C'est trop confortable de travailler avec les gens qui nous ressemblent. Et ça, c'est pas spécifique au Québec. Tu irais dans n'importe quel autre pays, c'est comme ça que ça se passe. Donc, vu qu'on ne peut pas le faire très très doucement, il faut forcer la chose politiquement. Voilà.
Alors, moi, j'aimerais bien qu'on fasse bien cette nuance-là. Il n'est pas question ici que chaque Québécois et Québécoise ou une majorité de Québécois et Québécoises sont racistes. Ce qu'on vous dit, c'est quand dans la fonction publique, par exemple, il n'y a pas plus de personnes, malgré les programmes d'accès à l'emploi pour les personnes racisées, qu'ils ne sont pas plus représentés dans l'appareil de la fonction publique, au niveau des corps policiers, au niveau du système judiciaire, au niveau de l'Assemblée nationale. Il y a du racisme systémique.
Il faut que tu acceptes ça. C'est le sacrifice à faire. Il y a des emplois, il y a des chômeurs, il y a des gens qui sont dans la misère, il y a des gens qui travaillent comme des nègres. Excusez l'expression, c'est pas bien.
Travaille fort.
Travaille fort, parce qu'un noir, ça travaille fort, on le sait. Ils n'ont pas des gros salaires, puis ils travaillent, ces gens-là.
Now, I've been fighting legally for 9 months. Everyone is asking me to prove myself, to give a lot of details, like day, time, dates, and everything. And it's draining and so much work that I have to do just to prove myself. While this person, she didn't have to prove anything. She just took this decision to fire me like that. And in fact, his kids still love me, still write to me today, we're still in touch. But I'm not there. But this person who makes this kind of comments, she is still there being a role model.
Le bureau des premiers ministres font de 400 à 500 nominations dans différentes sphères d'activité de l'État, organismes parapublics, ministères, 500 nominations par année. On a fait un décompte rapide. On peut se tromper sur 1% peut-être ou 2%, mais ce que nous avons pu identifier, il y a eu moins de 2% de nominations de personnes qui sont issues des minorités. On ne parle pas d'immigrants, là, des minorités visibles, nommables, qu'on peut vérifier. Donc, même si le responsable ne fait pas de discrimination raciale, le résultat de l'administration, de la manière dont c'est conçu, où ça néglige, ça ignore les problèmes de discrimination, ça fait en sorte qu'il y a une exclusion systématique, ce qu'on appelle donc racisme systémique.
Someone who is an immigrant or who's a newcomer who suffer from racism, who might not have the money, not knowing how to speak French or English properly, or the time to even deal with all the documents and the paperwork and the lawyers, and it's draining, right? So I find it despicable that this system endorses this kind of reality, and to feel isolated, depleted, and then just give up. So that sucks, and that needs to be changed.
والوساني ما نقول والوساني ما نقول لغلا ما بيا شي نقول لغلا ما بيا كاع مول انو يشيان غنايا قمت على صغري فيه مول علوي مد الهاي ولا قد مغني كاع قال ما قلت ما قال من لغنا 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 لا قال الراوي فيها حلاي وندور نجيبو ما سحال ولا يندص ذاك غنايا ونقدم واسي ذاك هاك راس روايه بغنايا غير لا خفتي عود ذاك هاك كاسلو راس روايه بس
Dirty Jeff, Rick, qu'est-ce qu'il y a, mec? Sénégalais dans le cœur, je suis pas né à Gorée. Mais s'il y a pas de problème ici, sache que demain j'en aurai. Oh, Jajo Fouaille, je suis heureux même sans maille. Et poche vide, je plonge dans l'abîme avec mes frères, je prends pas une ride. Parce que Booba à côté de moi c'est un amateur. Quand il disait que c'est pas moi je quitte le quartier, c'est le quartier qui me quitte. Et aujourd'hui avec sa voix vocale il ouvre la coupe d'Afrique. Oh putain je suis trop fort, je dois aller courir. Je suis trop balèze.
Ça juste, je suis étonné que c'est juste des blancs qui doivent présenter tout. Comme quoi, pourquoi? Puis il n'y a aucun scientifique noir pour présenter quelque chose. C'est un blanc qui doit présenter qu'est-ce qu'un lion. Par contre, il n'y a pas de lion dans les pays des blancs. J'ouvre ma télé, c'est un blanc qui présente comme qu'est-ce qui sont les pays moins développés, les villages éloignés, quoi. C'est un blanc qui doit s'envoyer les envoyés spéciaux, quoi. T'as pas vu les envoyés spéciaux? C'est un blanc qui doit aller là-bas pour présenter qu'est-ce qui est comme... Ils nous traitent comme si on était moins que rien. C'est juste ça que moi je trouve bizarre.
À quelque part, on dit les médias sont un miroir de la société dans laquelle on vit. Mais si les gens regardent dans le miroir et ne se reconnaissent pas, je ne pense pas qu'ils vont écouter ces médias. Je pense que la télévision, la radio et tous les médias de masse sont trop puissants pour les gaspiller. Il faudrait que les utiliser à leur plein potentiel pour favoriser l'intégration culturelle. Et pour que les gens regardent la télé, s'intéressent à ce qui se fait à la télé, il faut qu'ils se reconnaissent là-dedans. Et pour qu'ils se reconnaissent là-dedans, pour qu'ils soient un des leurs là-dedans, certains des leurs, je suis convaincu de ça. Sinon, les satellites leur permettent d'écouter ce qui se passe dans leur pays, tout simplement.
Je m'appelle Émilie, je suis auteure et prof au primaire et j'ai écrit ce livre, Prise de bec, que j'ai dédicacé à Khaled qui est là. Et en fait, Bobby, parce qu'il ne savait pas, j'étais en train d'écrire cette histoire-là et puis mon histoire, c'était une histoire avec deux poules, une noire et une blanche. Et la noire était négative, puis la blanche était positive et je m'étais pas aperçue. Le fait de m'apercevoir de ça m'a permis de changer les personnages puis de juste pas embarquer dans ça puis renforcer l'inconscient que les enfants peuvent avoir des fois d'associer le noir au négatif, le blanc au positif puis que ça se transpose après sur les gens. Je pense pas que je suis pas une personne raciste, mais j'étais pas sensibilisée à ça et j'étais pas sensibilisée aussi à l'impact que ça peut avoir sur l'inconscient collectif des enfants. Donc j'ai mis une poule rousse et une poule grise. Voilà.
On est considéré comme une langue étrangère, nous autres et nous, puis on commence à perdre notre langue. Puis moi, j'aimerais ça qu'on soit reconnu, qu'il y ait une pétition qui oblige la musique autochtone et nous, au banc Atikamekw, de passer dans les radios québécoises. C'est pas parce que tu comprends pas la langue qu'on parle mal du monde. On fait des chansons pour nous autres, des chansons d'amour, des chansons de la nature. Puis j'aimerais ça que ma langue soit reconnue comme toutes les autres. Puis je veux toujours chanter en Innu pour la sauvegarder. Puis c'est comme si on m'obligeait à chanter en français ou en anglais. Les radios demandent 70% que la tune soit en français ou en anglais. Puis il resterait juste 30% pour chanter dans ma langue. Puis moi, j'aime pas ça. Puis je veux sauvegarder ma langue, puis je veux qu'elle soit reconnue comme toutes les langues.
بعمل نو تشيبيد موجين واشت كند موجين نو ما كشتو جن دني مت واحد من التنامي وجبني جن y compris نو جن que وجبني جن ديك ما كشتو نو دوت تيغا تابت ديميك ما وي ود ديميك تبوا مونو تيجي نو كتابت ديم انتاوي بتستلمك مين بتاجو بتستلمياني ناتم انو نغمون مات تيجي con el mar in Uimiasa quando adina admeri tino mon admani mekero stana kem no magazine tudo mas yamé no merci beaucoup.
It's been about 5 years that I've been working on this documentary, and I started to see some changes. Yeah, now we're in 2021 and I'm actually seeing a lot more diversity on the ads, and I've actually interviewed some people that work within the advertisement industry, and they didn't want to be filmed nor recorded. One person was a Quebecois, is a Quebecois, white Quebecois. Long story short, who just said, but there is representation here in Montreal, so I don't know what you're complaining about. And and we have to go with the majority of the people. This is just the way it is.
The kinds of assumptions that are made in advertising is
more conscious for sure. Every single person there is white, and they also know that probably if they put 2 of these ads, one of those people would be black out of like about 20, just to say, you know, we're not prejudiced.
Il faut faire des échanges interculturels par les arts. Moi, je pense qu'il faut retourner au peuple et aux cultures de la terre et de retourner aux enseignements de nos anciens pour nous rappeler qu'on vient tous de la même place, qu'avant la séparation des continents, on venait tous du continent de l'Afrique. Et puis la migration humaine, c'est la migration de tous nos frères et nos sœurs. Il faut créer un nous collectif, puis apprendre à se parler, peut-être encore mieux apprendre à écouter.
The other person that I interviewed is a white woman from France who actually said that we have a lot more representation and a lot more diversity here in Montreal than even in France. So that I should actually be very happy about this and I should take that into consideration. Well, but we're talking about Canada, not France. Canada thrives and lives with this idea of multiculturalism. So of course they have to show, and they should show a lot more. And she said something about how diversity here is encouraged, even in her company, once a year or once every I don't know how many months, where all the people that work within that company are encouraged to come to work dressed with their traditional clothes of their countries. And I asked her, but don't you see anything wrong with that? We don't need permission, first of all, from anyone to tell us what to wear and what not to wear. By doing that, we're just gonna keep perpetuating this idea of, like, you know, the exotic. And the other thing that she said that was very interesting, black people or people of color actually relate to white people and not the other way around. This is the power dynamics that need to be shifted, and they have the power. You have the power to do that. Just start putting diversity, just because at the end of the day, people will end up buying anyway if the narrative is different. So you guys have the power to change the narrative. We did end the interview with her saying this interview was very helpful, insightful, and I thank you for that, and I will talk to my bosses about it. Now I am seeing some diversity represented on the ads around Montreal, so that's very good. So I'd like to believe that me yelling and complaining has not been totally in vain. Huh? So therefore, people, if you don't like something, speak up, say something.
Je suis belle.
I'm beautiful.
J'existe.
J'existe.
I am who I exist.
I am the product of a beautiful mixture, and that makes me gorgeous.
I'm beautiful. Je suis beau.
Je suis beau.
I am beautiful.
J'ai du valeur.
And I'm worth it.
And I work it. Work it? I work it, trabajo.
It don't matter, taste better love. All the laughs and tears out and gone. Can't go around it, can't connect no dots. I wasn't involved, yeah, I wasn't included. Picking up the pieces of our broken future. Shattered dreams, each with different feels. Hugging loneliness, walking to numbness. Everything now beats silence. I'll be here till the end of me. I became a stranger.